Alicia. I just can't remember.
Cataracts are large waterfalls.
Yeah, large waterfalls. So when, Avery is trying to go conquer Egypt from Cush, he's sailing. He's like, "Oh, this is such a nice trip. It's so great. Ah, I just fell down a waterfall." Then he goes, puts his boat back together, picks himself, reattaches his arm. He goes, sails up down the Nile, down the Nile. He's thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be so great. I'm gonna do some conquering." Ah, I fell down again. And yeah, that's why Egypt was protected. Yes, Danielle, darling. Do you want to answer, or is that another thing? Oh, okay.
Saying the same thing as a
Okay. Yeah. The deserts. Now, kids misspell the word desert all the time, and this is how I remember how to spell desert. Desert and dessert are very close to their spelling. The difference between desert and dessert is an extra S. Deserts have one S, desserts have two S's. And the way you remember is you want way more desserts in your life, meaning more S's, than you have deserts in your life. Unless you like being dehydrated and like sunburned and stuff. So, Egypt is surrounded by 3 deserts. Okay, now you can name them lots of different ways. I'm never going to ask you the names, but you need to know, you need to write down, of course, that Egypt is surrounded by desert. Sometimes we call it the Western, the Eastern, and the Sinai. Sometimes we call it the Libyan, the Nubian, and the Arabian, if you want to have the Arabian keep on going out this way. But 90% of Egypt is desert. Like we said, Egypt and its amazing civilization would not exist if it was not for the Nile. They would not have it. I mean, they call it the lifeblood of Egypt for a reason, because it gave life to Egypt. Yes, Nicholas.
What is the other 10%?
The Nile River and the land right by it. So just this little, the Nile Delta is very large, but so our land of Goshen here, but then just along, that's the other 10%. But here's the thing. Ashlyn, you might not have known this about her. She looks really nice and sweet, but she's actually a ruthless military conqueror. But the problem is she wants to go conquer Egypt, but she'd have to bring all this extra water and all this extra food to cross the desert, and she doesn't have time for that. No, she's going to conquer easier places that does not have desert surrounding it. So we're going to see that Egypt, with the exception of like the Assyrians from Mesopotamian time, or then our Persian Empire later on, Egypt's going to be mostly protected from invasion because of this. And that's why we have so long where we can have beautiful things like these pyramids. Here's an example of the desert. So you don't want to cross that. You don't want to go on that. Your feet would get burned. You get sand in your underpants. Like, you need a drink. It just would be a disaster. When we get to the Persian Empire, which is one of my favorite things to talk about, we're going to actually talk about the lost army of Cambyses, because he was like, I want to go attack Nubia, which is south of Egypt. So, of course, he marches through the desert. You know what happens? Giant snowstorm comes. Or not snowstorm, silly Mr. Kenny. Sandstorm comes, and 40,000 of his soldiers get covered up in the sand, disappeared, never seen from again. 40,000. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah. All right, so now we get to farming in Egypt. Yes, Haley, my dear?
Did the guy die?
Well, Cambyses didn't go himself, because back then, like military leaders would be like, hey, Cypria, I want you to go take all these soldiers and go do it for me in my bidding so I can take all the credit. And unfortunately, Cypria was like, really? Oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, he didn't get lost, but his army did. Farming in Egypt. Now, as you did so beautifully in your do now, the Nile flooded predictably. Nick told us that they knew when it would flood with its predictableness. So that meant people were able to rely on it much, much better. They were able to go farm, and they knew when to plant their crops because it wouldn't get washed away, because they do it right after the flooding. Favorite crops to grow were wheat and barley. I'm never going to ask you what they grew, but those are still things that we eat today. Wheat, barley, yeah. And we know, just like how the Sumerians solved part of their problems with flooding through irrigation ditches, the people of Egypt are going to do exactly the same thing. And of course, once Divine goes and has his irrigation ditches, he's got his plants watered, Danielle has a great idea. Well, what if I just use this as transportation? I'll just put my boat in the irrigation ditch and make it so that I can get to places. Now, once we see Danielle getting such an easy way of going around, Aiden's like, Why don't I just put a bunch of stuff on there and sell it and make lots of money this way too? So that's what will wind up happening, having the irrigation ditches be part of the natural transportation that we have for the Egyptians. Right here we have pictured the shadoof. No, Aiden, don't call Cameron a shadoofus, okay? That wouldn't be nice. A shadoof is this.
Okay, I'll call him a doofus.
No, it's not virtuous. Now, the shadoof is pictured right here. And so what would happen is Aiden goes and uses his shadoof, not shadoofus, to go and get water from those canals or the river and then be able to take it, because see how it's connected? It goes, wheels over, and then he can go plant, water that tree over here or this whatever the heck it is right over there. And so that's one of the ways they're able to go spread the water around with their shadoofs. Don't even think about calling Grider that, Madeline Kate. I just saw the idea pop in your head. Yes, I can look into your head sometimes. Yes, it is extremely scary. And yes, there are a lot more unicorns, if you're wondering about that, guys.
But how can you look into our head when we're in a Google Meet?
With my X-ray vision. Duh. All right. Yes, Madeline Kate?
In German, doof means dumb and doofe means stupid.
Yeah, that's where we get the word
so
doof.
Everyone can call their brothers and sisters that.
I do love how you're sprechen Sie Deutsch. Ja, richtig.
Okay,
That was good. All right, Nicholas, sir.
If you had X-ray vision, you would have just looked right through the computer.
It's magical X-ray vision. Now, anyways, one of the other things that grew along the Nile, which was so fantastic, was papyrus. No, not the character in Undertale, not the skeleton guy, but the plant papyrus. Which, if you Google papyrus, unless you specify the plant, guess what all you see? Papyrus from Undertale and like hanging out with Sans. It was infuriating. But this is what papyrus looks like. Hooray. See how tall it is? It's really big. This papyrus, they would go take that and weave it together. They'd smash it with a hammer, they'd dry it out, and then we have beautiful papyrus paper. Like so, which if we were in my classroom, you would see examples of papyrus. Because I have some real Egyptian papyrus and like some Egyptian like stuff on it, not like ancient, and here we see them weaving it together. Isn't that so cool? So cool. I love it. Anyways, moving on. They'd also make rope and stuff like that, but we always think about the paper. Is that a question or a comment, Danielle? I knew that because I was once again looking into her brain.
I first thought it was like the fruit papaya when he said it, and I was like, it's papyrus. And is it a tree that you use to make paper?
It's a plant. So once again, it looks like this, and they weave it together like so to make the paper. But yeah, no, it's not like papayas, which it would be more delicious if it was. But I don't recommend eating this.
What are papayas?
They're a fruit. They're yummy.
Very
so,
delicious.
Here we see some Egyptian hieroglyphics. What can we learn about our Egyptians from these hieroglyphics here? Start us off, my main man, Arvin.
It kind of looks like they're trying to tame an animal.
Well, this animal is already domesticated. But they're using an animal, definitely. So what else can we learn here? Karachi.
It kind of looks almost like they're plowing a little bit.
They are. Correct. So we know they have the plow technology. What else can we learn besides the plow? What else can we learn here, guys? Danny. Love the hair, by the way.
I see a lot of plants at the bottom. And there's some. Is that writing on that wall?
Yeah, it's hieroglyphics. So it's explaining what's happening here. We see it's very fertile, very good. What else can we learn about this? Good old MK.
Are they they're hoeing the plants.
Okay, well, they're going and they're actually planting the plants, so they're plowing. What's something that we notice maybe in the back of this image? What's something that we see that might be a little unique compared to our Sumerians? Nicholas. I'll get you next, Rylan.
They're using a whip, it looks like.
All right, so we see that he's using this whip to move the two cow-like things or bulls or whatever. So we have that. What do you see, Rylan?
I see, like, in the back, the lady's, like, sprinkling some type of stuff.
Yeah, what do you think she's sprinkling, Mariah?
That was an accident.
That's okay. What do you think she's sprinkling?
Seeds?
Exactly. See, you know this, saying it's an accident. No, it was meant to be, my dear. Meant to be. So we learn here that the Egyptians, unlike the Sumerians, the women took part in the farming as well. Because remember, for the Sumerians, Ashlyn was stuck at home, where for the Egyptians, she gets the joy of working outside, doing all the hard labor just with the dudes. She's like, I don't know if I want to do that. Oh, she does? Okay. So we see that women divided the labor too. And here I am, like literally touching my screen, pointing to things. And I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, you can't see me doing that because we're not at school. All right. Here we see some more of the planning and action. We see how some of the irrigation is. So we see irrigation in that way. We see how we've got little irrigation there. It's just so wonderful.
Yeah.
Here we see, and this is something they even used back then. So they use the animal to go spin around this, and this is a pump to help pump water to go get it uphill so that they can also go and wind up growing lots of crops that way. And that is our notes for today, my cherubs. So I'm going to end the recording. Dun, dun.